Good morning, boys and girls. So today, let's review what the word courage means. Courage means being brave in the face of danger or something that can make you feel afraid. In our story today, we will learn about two spies who chose to be brave or courageous because they believed what God said. They believed in God's promises. Unfortunately, there were 10 other men who chose not to be courageous, who chose not to be brave, and chose to be afraid of what man can do to them. But as long as God promises you something, he will follow through with that, and you have nothing to be afraid of. And that's what we can learn today from two men named Joshua and Caleb. So we're going to go back to the book of Numbers, and we will read the story about 12 spies. So Israel, or God's people, they were wandering in the wilderness. So they had been rescued from a country called Egypt who had kept them in bondage. That means that they were slaves there for many years. And God rescued them from Egypt, and now they were wandering in the wilderness, waiting to be able to go to the land that God promised them. So let's find out what happens. The leader at the time was a man named Moses. So that's very important to know as well. Moses and his brother Aaron also helped him as well. So let's read. Moses gave 12 men these instructions as he sent them out to explore the land that God had promised them. Go north through the Negev into the hill country. See what the land is like, and find out whether the people living there are strong or weak, few or many. See what kind of land they live in. Is it good or bad? Do their towns have walls, or are they unprotected like open camps? Is the soil fertile or poor? Are there many trees? Do your best to bring back samples of the crops you see. It happened to be the season for harvesting the first ripe grapes. So they went up and explored the land from the wilderness of Zin as far as Rehob near Leb-hamath. Going north, they passed through the Negev and arrived at Hebron. Wow, those are a lot of big words. So they traveled around in this land to explore and see what it was like. So they arrived at Hebron, where several kinds of giants had lived. When they came to the valley of Eshcol, they cut down a branch with a single cluster of grapes so large that it took 2 of them to carry it on a pole between the 2. They also brought back samples of the pomegranates and figs. Those are 2 kinds of fruits that grow out there. That place was called the Valley of Eshcol, which means cluster, because of the cluster of grapes the Israelite men cut there. After exploring the land for 40 days, the men returned to Moses, Aaron, and the whole community of Israel at Kadesh in the wilderness of Paran. They reported to the whole community what they had seen and showed them the fruit they had taken from the land. So what did they see out there? They did see giants, but they also saw really big fruits. They were able to bring back huge grapes and pomegranates and figs and some wonderful things from the land that God had promised them. This was the report that the spies gave to Moses. "We entered the land you sent us to explore, and it is indeed a bountiful country, a land flowing with milk and honey. Here is the kind of fruit it produces. But the people living there are powerful, and their towns are large and strong. We even saw giants there, the descendants of Anak. The Amalekites live in the Negev, and the Hittites, Jebusites, and Amorites live in the hill country. The Canaanites live along the coast of the Mediterranean Sea and along the Jordan Valley." But Caleb tried to quiet the people because now, with everything that the spies had told them, they were starting to get afraid of giants, and these people who were living in these lands, they could have been enemies. But one of the spies, Caleb, tried to quiet the people as they stood before Moses. "Let's go at once and take the land," he said. "We can certainly conquer it." But the other men who explored the land with him disagreed, or 10 of the other men disagreed. "We can't go up against them. They are stronger than we are." So let's stop real quick there. So Caleb was telling them, "Oh yes, we can take it. We can take this land that God has given to us and promised to us." And the 10 other men, they said, "Nope, we can't do it. They're giants. There are other enemies there, and I don't think it's worth it." Is that what God told them? No, he promised them this land. And if God promises something, then then you need to trust in him. He is going to do it. Okay? And Caleb, the other spy, knew this. But the other men who had explored the land with him disagreed. "We can't go up against them. They are stronger than we are." So they spread this bad report about the land among the Israelites and scared them. "The land we traveled through and explored will devour anyone who goes to live there. All the people we saw were huge. We even saw giants there, the descendants of Anak. Next to them, we felt like grasshoppers." And that's what they thought too. 2 of the men who had explored the land, Joshua son of Nun and Caleb son of Jephunneh, tore their clothing. That means that they were really frustrated. They said to all the people of Israel, "The land we traveled through and explored is a wonderful land, just like God promised. And if the Lord is pleased with us, he will bring us safely into that land, and he will give it to us. It is a rich land flowing with milk and honey. Do not disobey God, and don't be afraid of the people of the land. They are only helpless prey to us. They have no protection, but the Lord is with us. Don't be afraid of them." So Caleb and Joshua were brave and courageous and wanted to show the rest of the Israelites, the Lord is giving us this land and he will give it to us, like he said. But the 10 other spies decided they wanted to just be afraid. And that is not what God wants us to do when he tells us to do something. And because Caleb and Joshua were obedient and tried to obey God in this, they were able to live in the land that God had promised them. So they had waited many, many, many years because Israel chose to follow the 10 spies' advice, and they had to wait for 40 more years in the desert before they can go and live in this beautiful land that God had given to them. All of the 10 spies they had grown old and died in the wilderness before they could live in the promised land. And that was their punishment. But the two men who believed in God, Caleb and Joshua, God had allowed them to go into the land that God promised them, and they were able to live there. Joshua actually became the new leader for the Israelites after Moses passed away, after Moses died. So that was another blessing that God had given to them. And Caleb was Joshua's assistant. So just remember, you need to be brave. Don't listen to what people will tell you. Listen closely to what God will say, because He will fill you with the courage you need to be able to do anything. I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. That is something that we all need to remember. So have a good day, and I will talk to you later.